So the Central Bank of Nigeria today met with members of the House of Representatives on the new Naira notes deadline and has clarified the position of the financial regulator. According to the Central Bank statement, the February 10, 2023 deadline for depositing the affected banknotes remain in position and not changing. And the old 200, 500 and 1,000 Naira notes will cease to be legal tender after February the 10th and can no longer be used for any form of transaction afterwards. According to the Central Bank, however, according to the Central Bank Act, Nigerians will have the opportunity to redeem the face value of the Naira only at the central bank after the currency had lost its legal status, subject to meeting certain conditions. The Central Bank clarified what the governor told the House of Representatives earlier today, that Nigerians will not lose their money in this exercise. If once the 10th of February elapsed, you can deposit all the old Naira notes you have at the nearest office of the Central Bank of Nigeria, and you can get the face value of what you deposit, subject to certain conditions, and that will be done only at the Central Bank and not in any commercial bank, effective February the 10th, and that's what the Central Bank have said. So the Central Bank reiterated what he told the House of Reps Article Committee earlier today, that the February 10th deadline remain irrevocable. You can get face value of whatever you deposit in the Central Bank directly, effective the 10th of February, subject to certain conditions. So the old 200, 500 and 1,000 Naira notes cease to be legal tender, effective 10th of February. Keep that in mind, everyone. But Nigeria continues to attract the highest inflow of venture capital funding, in particular into the fintech subsector of the economy. But what further innovations are venture capitalists and private equity managers bringing to the table? I'm chatting to this now here with Gbite Oduneye. He's a global market professional and the managing partner at ODBA VC. Good evening. Great to see you. First time in the new year.
Yes, it is actually. An absolute pleasure to see you.
Get to see you, Gbite.
Always a pleasure.
So much about the global VC. So I'm asking, how's the new year beginning to shape up? It's just the first month, maybe too early, considering where we're coming from in 2022. Bring me up to speed.
Okay. Again, it's always a pleasure to be here. Thank you so much for having me. So we started off the year last year. The first 2 quarters of the year, where the amount of funding that was coming in onto the continent was robustly high, doing very, very well. By the time we got into the third and fourth quarter, we saw a drop, a drop from where we were in 2021. We ended the year just slightly above the levels of 2021, and of course, there are reasons for that. The inflation rate shot up, access to cheap capital globally dried out. So a number of venture capitalists' due diligence and committing to deals started taking a bit longer. So far, the last 4 weeks, as reported by Africa the Big Deal, it has been a positive start. It has been a positive start to the year. And depending, a number of venture capitalists didn't deploy a lot of money last year. So there's a lot of dry powder out there, right? There's a lot of capital waiting on the sidelines to go into
I was just about to ask if the cash is still there. Yes. But what's holding it out there? So,
like I mentioned, a leap in inflation jumped up. And there was so if you think about it, 2021 is a fantastic year for venture. An amazing amount of money flowed in, and we all thought that would continue. Then comes the shock of, as we've mentioned, inflation and high interest rates. Yeah. So, all these venture capitalists, all these firms are going to reassess their positions.
Right? Are there still good deals on the African continent, in Nigeria, in fintech space, elsewhere, to attract these funds that's hanging out there?
Without a doubt. There are a number. We have an abundance of talent, right? An abundance of innovative entrepreneurs using technology to create improbable stories. All we saw was the first wave. What I like to say, Bosso, you would be familiar with this. It's very similar to a situation we had in 2008. A group of very young, ambitious men, at the time, the Tony Elumilus, the Tayo Aderokos at the time, set up banks, right? I'm being very serious, very similar to where we are now.
I remember.
Right? Mm-hmm. Then we had a central bank governor that moved capitalization from 2 billion to 25 billion, which gave them an enormous amount of capital that they had not been familiar with, capital that they were not used to. And then we had the 2008 crisis. Now, after that, what happened after that? Yes, we saw a correction and we saw a number of companies fail. But what we did see was a number of the biggest banks in Africa today started their march towards where we are now. Now, where we are now, we had a fantastic 2021. VC is still fairly new in Africa. And then we had this influx of capital, the correction that has occurred now. So now, valuations did start getting a bit ahead of themselves, right? So I think that general correction, I wouldn't say it's good for the whole ecosystem, but the correction was inevitable based on the numbers in which we're going.
You folks, you and your team are in the VC market right now,
yes,
in the VC space, and we're seeing increasing number of you folks. Where are you folks getting in the funds, and what's the sentiment out there amongst your colleagues, as it were?
Well, very, very positive. The amount of VC firms that are investing in Africa are increasing, especially VC firms and VC funds that are run by Africans and black folks that are investing. And it just comes from, we've waited on the sidelines for as long as we can. We've always wanted to make impact and contribute to the development of the great continent.
Yes.
Technology arises, and it makes it easier for all of us. With regards to where the funds coming from, a lot of the funds are being raised from abroad, but we have seen a considerable amount of funds also coming in from Africa. That has taken a bit of time, but it is improving. And as you said, the opportunities are there. I mean, the problems that exist on the continent that need solving are not going away. So all that has happened was prices and valuations got ahead of themselves as a result of cheap capital. Due diligence, stopped being as robust as it used to be. Yeah. So it's just a correction. And we see a 2023, a gradual build back to, we might not return to 2021 levels, but definitely there's a lot of capital on the sidelines looking to come into.
But if you look at what you're doing at ODB AVC, in what sectors are you looking to intervene? What are you bringing to the table? What are you offering companies, organizations, and individuals who's got innovative entrepreneurship? And what are you offering them? What's green? Okay.
So thanks for that. We're an early stage VC fund, right, a VC firm, where we invest in pre-seed and seed. We are sector agnostic in that we would look at a number of opportunities, but our expertise is in fintech, edtech, and health tech. It's backing innovative founders that have seen a big problem that needs to be solved, right? And they're using technology to solve these problems. If you think about it, our problems are endless, right? So it's just a case of when the prices recorrect, which is what they've done now, and there's more comfort with regards to how you feel the economy is going to go forward from interest rates and generally the economy, because there's no point in spending a lot of money and building a massive company if the retail client, your clientele don't have capital. Yeah. Saying that, some of the greatest companies on the planet, technical companies, were built during a recession. So it's just going to make a number of the founders more gritty, increase their conviction. I mean, a number of our portfolio companies, Kuda, MedSaf, and Bitmama amongst them, they've been very resilient in this climate.
Give me 1 minute as we move into a major political transition. What would you like to see change to make Nigeria still an attractive destination for the VCs and the PEs in the 2023 into 2024?
Well, there are a couple of things. I mean, there's some things that have been passed, right? The Nigerian Startup Bill has been passed to make a more attractive environment. But it does help. I mean, it wasn't there before.
Yes.
So a number of people within the ecosystem, the FinTech Association of Nigeria, and with a number of other contributors, have come in. Things like tax breaks for investors. Before it was very difficult, and I'm sure as you're aware, the regulation and things like Gbite. But now there's a body that has been put together and a bill that has been passed to make it easier. Now, from a government point of view, of course, we want stability. It's been difficult. The last couple of years in Nigeria has been difficult.
Okay.
The devaluation has been difficult. But it does seem as if the appetite is there.
It's there. Okay, let's work on the appetite.
Okay.
We'll keep the appetite there, my friend.
No
Have a great
problem at all.
evening.
It's always a
Thank
pleasure.
you for this conversation and insights. That's Gbite Oduneye, the managing partner at the Global Market Specialist Professional at ODBA VC.